Luke Skywalker, Indiana Jones, James Bond, Batman. These are legacy characters. These are franchise characters that have lived far beyond what the original creators even dreamed they would do. And they have evolved in ways that the original creators couldn't even have anticipated. I thought I'd give you guys a little nugget, a little thought today. It's like a mini blog just about legacy characters, franchise characters. Because there was a little bit of a dust up in the nerd community when Marsha Lucas, one of the original editors of the Star Wars movies, voiced her dislike of the new Star Wars movies. She's entitled to her opinion. Not a writer or director. She is an editor. Her contributions were immeasurable to the original movies, but it made me think about, everybody's got their perspective when they start making something, and then that character takes on a life that is decades long. And once that happens, you've got two choices with your franchise character. Your franchise character can be eternally one age, eternally young, eternally having adventures that don't really relate to a timeline. That's James Bond. That's Batman. That's Spider-Man. A lot of superhero characters. You can recast that actor over and over again. You can retell that story over and over again. That character has eternal life in about the same age range that we always remember them. And so that's why those parts, James Bond continues to be recast. And that's the problem we've had with the Star Wars movies, or some people have had, because at a certain point, when Disney bought the franchise, they made a decision. Now, the decision could have been, we're going to have the eternal adventures of Luke Skywalker. Just kind of a zone right after Return of the Jedi, and that would be recasting with a young 25-year-old actor, and probably recasting again and again and again. And Luke Skywalker and his friends, Han and Leia, they just live on forever, and they just have adventures forever. And that's, I think, the problem with the Indiana Jones movies. If I can rabbit trail there, a lot of people think it's sacred to Harrison Ford. He's the only one that can ever play the part. Well, that means he's going to be playing him as a 90-year-old, which nobody wants to see. I believe that Indiana Jones was George Lucas's answer to James Bond. That was going to be his James Bond character. Lucas has said, I'm not going to make a James Bond movie, so I'm going to come up with my own guy. His name is Indiana Jones. And I would love to see that part recast. Not once, many times. We could have 20 Indiana Jones movies, guys. And maybe some would be good and some would be bad. But they would be movies where he is always about 35 to 40 years old. And he is always in the 30s or the 40s of our timeline that we see him in. He would be an eternal character. Right now we're having a real problem with Indiana Jones growing older in history. And I feel like that really blocks that character. Now with Luke Skywalker, people don't like that he got old. But guess what? We want Mark Hamill to play him forever. Mark Hamill's getting old. Mark Hamill can't leap from the rooftops. It might have been exciting and interesting to see an old man, an aging actor, still doing what Luke Skywalker does. But I think Rian Johnson was trying to be pretty honest, and so was JJ, in saying, what would it be like for Luke Skywalker to be this age? What would it be like for a man to grow old and see 30 years of stuff? So when Disney made the decision to age the franchise, to age the Star Wars story with those actors, I remember when I read that, I'm thinking, oh, that's very interesting, that we are going to keep the timeline alongside the actors. And 30 years will have passed since Return of the Jedi. What will that mean for those characters? So it's a very different way of looking at your characters. If Star Wars was a Buck Rogers kind of a show, a Buck Rogers kind of a movie, then Luke should just always be 25 years old, and he should always be having endless adventures. And that's not the decision that I think Lucas wanted to make, or Disney. So we're stuck with actors that are getting older. And, when Marsha Lucas said she was really upset that Han Solo died, I mean, people are getting older. Characters are getting older. There are only so many major milestones that character can reach. And I think Harrison Ford has always voiced his opinion that he thought a major milestone that could be a big deal for Han Solo is for him to die. So we don't want our characters to die. And if you don't, then you got to go to franchises like Batman, where Batman will kind of never die. James Bond, Daniel Craig is bringing that character to some kind of conclusion. But James Bond will be rebooted. He will be reborn over and over and over again. It's like Doctor Who without any rules. So I thought that was interesting, and it's something to chew on, that when you look at your franchise character that you love, and you have your opinions about what they should do and shouldn't do, just keep in mind there's two different kinds of ways to treat a franchise character. They either live the timeline of the actor and get old with the actor, and that limits your choices, or you make the character live beyond the means of the actor. And if the character's going to live beyond the means of the actor, you have to recast. And that always seems to be a terrible band-aid for people to rip off, but it means you get that character forever. And I would love to see Indiana Jones do 20 movies. And I think Star Wars has already planted a flag in that we will not see Luke Skywalker have adventures forever unless we cast a new guy. And then we still got to wedge those stories somewhere in the timeline, because the timeline's getting really dense. We're having a hard time. So if we leap ahead 100 years and start with brand new characters, that'll probably make Marshall Lucas pretty upset. But it's a universe, and the only way for it to expand is to expand our expectations of what it is, and even George Lucas's expectations of what it is. I can't wait to see what happens in many of these franchises, and I think the more we are open to it as fans, the more cool stuff we're going to get out of those characters. We just got to be open, and we got to let other creators dip in and do their take on it. And that's my take on it. And you probably won't like it, or you'll love it. And it doesn't matter, because we're all having a conversation about it. Isn't that fun? So that's my take. That's my short blog today, because I stared at a Millennium Falcon all day and it was on my mind. See you later, true believers.